Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today we continue speaking about punctuation in English. If you haven't seen my previous video about the punctuation marks that help us end a sentence, you can find the link to it in the description section down below. Today we are going to talk about those punctuation marks that we use to divide our sentences into parts. And the first punctuation mark that I would like to start with is the comma. The comma has a lot of applications in English. And as it is a very widely used punctuation mark, students often make mistakes using the comma in those places where it should not be used. In which cases do we need to use the comma? We definitely need the comma to separate two words that otherwise will be misunderstood. For instance, instead of 2, 3 came. If we drop the comma here, we will end up with two numerals that go one after the other, and the sentence will make no sense. Another example. To Alice, Nicholas was the most handsome man on earth. Here we have two names, Alice and Nicholas, and if we don't use the comma, the meaning of the sentence will be lost. And the last example, what that sound was not known. Here, the subordinate clause and the main clause have the same predicate, was. And as it happens so that these two predicates go one after the other, we should separate them somehow. So we use the comma in order to do that, in order to make it clear that there are two predicates and two clauses. But please pay attention to this sentence. The electrician advised that that socket should be replaced. This that introduces the subordinate clause can be dropped. These two that's, they are different parts of speech. Each has its place, no comma is needed. Another place where we must use the comma is before a short direct quotation of only several words that comes after an introductory phrase. Let me demonstrate. David said, "It's now or never." This is a very short quote. It's now or never. It is several words, right? And such short quotes are not preceded by the colon. They are preceded by the comma. Another example. She said, "I'll be there." The same, that's a very short idea. That's why we put a comma before the quote. "It's too late," he muttered. The same happens here. It's just that the introductory phrase now goes after the quote. But the idea is the same. We should separate the quote and the introductory phrase with the help of the comma. The last example, "No way," he cut. It's even a shorter phrase, right? And again, we have our introductory phrase after the quote, and it is separated by the comma. The third case in which we use the comma is to indicate the omission of a word or of several words. Let's see. Then they had much. Now, nothing. We find the comma in the place of the predicate. What is omitted here? They have is omitted, right? Now they have nothing. Another example. He was tired. She energized. Some languages would require the dash here. In English, we put the comma. She was energized. Was is omitted, thus the comma takes its place. We also use the comma to separate coordinate adjectives. These are adjectives that have the same value. We use coordinate adjectives to describe things, and if we have two of them before our noun, we can put either and or the comma between them. Let's see. She wrote a bright, colorful dress. Or it was a long, exhausting day. The old, creaky house was full of memories. The next place where we should use the comma is after introductory phrases and clauses that come before the main clause. Let's see. Worried by the news, she called her daughter. Having got dressed, she went downstairs. If you're tired, go to bed. Where are you? I would accept the offer. The lights having gone out, they had to go to bed. So you see, whatever introductory clause or phrase we have, if it goes before our main clause, we should separate it by the way what is the construction that is used in the last sentence here, the lights having gone out. If you don't know what it is, you can check this video. There I speak about participial constructions. And this thing, the lights having gone out, is called the absolute participial construction. Here it functions as the adverbial modifier of cause. Why did they go to bed? What caused them to go to bed? The fact that the lights had gone out. And one more example, the weather being cold, they decided not to go to the lake. This is also a participial construction, but of a different type. And again, if you need to revise participles and participial constructions, you can find the links to all those videos in the description to this one. Another reason to use the comma is to set off parenthetic words, phrases, and clauses. For instance, they seem, however, to have thought little about details. She guessed my age on the eyes, which was quite impressive. He didn't thank the old man, which, in my opinion, was rude. It will turn out, I believe, that our friend may be correct. What he said was true. It was nevertheless unpleasant to hear. The supermarkets were closed on Sunday and therefore we had to eat in a cafe. But James missed the bus and therefore had to walk to the office. Pay attention that in the previous sentence, therefore is separated by commas, whereas in the last sentence we don't use any commas. Why? Because if this parenthetic word, therefore, is closely connected to the previous idea, like we missed the bus, and therefore, because we missed the bus, we had to walk to the office. In this case, it may not be separated. In the previous sentence, the supermarkets were closed on Sunday, and therefore is a little bit further from the word closed. So it is more logical to separate it with commas. So basically, it is a good idea to use commas in order to separate all those therefore, however, nevertheless, all those transitional expressions, because this will make your ideas more clear. Now, the comma is also used to set off words and phrases in apposition or in contrast. Let's see. Mrs. Brown, the housekeeper, fulfilled her obligations thoroughly. Mrs. Brown, the housekeeper, when we use two noun phrases next to each other, this is called apposition, because we are talking about the same person. Mrs. Brown is the housekeeper. So basically what we do is we just specify whom we are talking about. Let's see another example. Jasmine's brother, Elliot, has been working here for almost a year. The same, Jasmine's brother, we specify what his name is. Elliot has been working here for almost a year. The next example, the master bedroom, the biggest bedroom in the house, faces east. Again, we have two noun phrases here that refer to the same noun, to the same bedroom. Let's take a look at a different example. Stephen, not Alex, received the job. Here, two noun phrases are in contrast to each other. Stephen, not Alex. Let's take a look at a couple of interesting sentences. The first one is Jasmine's brother, Elliot, has been working here for almost a year. And the second would be just the same sentence but without the commas. Jasmine's brother Elliot has been working here for almost a year. What, in your opinion, is the difference between these two sentences? The first sentence, in which Elliot is set off with the help of these commas, clearly tells us that Jasmine has one brother. Elliot is just an additional piece of information we give about the same person. But the second sentence tells us that Jasmine has several brothers, and is her brother Elliot, not her brother John, for instance, or not her brother Alex, is the one who has been working here for almost a year. The next place where we should use the comma is after each member within a series of 3 or more words, phrases, letters, or figures used with and, or nor. Examples. The room was filled with blue, red, and white balloons. I have bought some oranges, plums, and apricots. Neither snow, rain, nor heat could stop the dedicated hikers from reaching the mountain's peak. The process took 1 day, 4 hours, and 20 minutes. Please do pay attention to the fact that yes, we do use the comma before and in English, though it might be different in some other languages. When we have a series of several words or phrases, they are separated by the comma, and when we introduce the last member of the series and we have and or nor there, it should be preceded by another comma. But when our series consists of two words, the comma is not used. For instance, neither Jane nor Alice liked the movie. To put a comma after Jane would be incorrect. Look also at this sentence, please. He's 3 years, 5 months, 10 days. Here we speak about the age of the person. It's not a series of periods of time, it's his age. So he's 3 years, 5 months, 10 days. No commas are needed. We also use the comma before the conjunction in a compound sentence if it contains two or more independent clauses that could each stand alone as a simple sentence. Let's see. Tom loves playing soccer and he practices every weekend. And baked a cake and Michael set the table. The sun was shining and the birds were singing. Each of these three sentences can be separated into two independent sentences. So we can say, Tom loves playing soccer, he practices every weekend. And baked a cake, Michael set the table. The sun was shining, the birds were singing. So when such independent clauses compose one sentence, they are separated by the comma. Now, another case where we use the comma is after a noun or phrase in direct address, when we directly address somebody. For instance, Lisa, can you help me with this? Thank you for your help, Amanda. Students, please listen carefully. I appreciate your support, Mr. Smith. We use the comma when we have an introductory statement that is followed by a direct question. For instance, the question is, who will take the lead? You're sure, are you not? I'm curious, so where did you find this book? In all of these sentences, we have an introductory statement, after which we have a question. And we separate these two with the help of the comma. Another case where we need to use the comma is in conditional sentences. But of course, not in all conditional sentences, but only in those where we have our conditional clause before the main clause. For instance, if you study hard, you will pass the exam. Where are you? I wouldn't go there alone. If you had read the book, you would have known the answer to this question. But if our conditional clause goes second, no comma is used. You will pass the exam if you study hard. I wouldn't go there alone if I were you. You would know the answer to this question if you had read the book. Now, another application of the comma is between the title of a person and the name of an organization in the absence of the words of or of the. For instance, Chairman, Committee on Appropriations. If there were of or of the, for instance, Chairman of the Committee of Appropriations, no comma would be used. Another example, President, University of Virginia. Director, National Institute of Health. Dean, Harvard Law School, and so on. We may use the comma inside the quotation marks when we have short quotes or words that are in the inverted commas that are parts of one sentence. For instance, she said Tuesday, not Thursday. The right to equality is fundamental, he insisted. He called her dumb, didn't he? We also use the commas to separate thousands and millions in numerical figures. For instance, we will write 5,250 and 5,000 will be set off by the comma. 1,500,000. Thousands and millions are separated, and the last one would be 1 billion. Here we'll have 3 commas. We also need to use the comma after the year in complete dates within a sentence. For instance, this data was included in the report dated June the 13th, 2011. The 4th of July, 1776, marks a significant date in the history of the United States. Alex worked in this department from September the 20th, 2010 until June the 10th, 2021, when he accepted another assignment. Please pay attention to the dates, to how they are written. This is how it must be. Now, as the comma is one of the most common punctuation marks, is often misused, we should speak about those cases in which we should not use it, even if we want to. So first and foremost, we do not use the comma between month, holiday, or season and year in dates. For instance, July 2022, the 15th of February 2016, 93 BC, Easter Sunday 2023, Spring 2001, Summer 1880. We do not use the comma before the ampersand. Ampersand means the same as and, but with the case of and we do use the comma, with the ampersand we don't. We say Riley, Jeffers and Stearns, Brown, Wilson and Company. But if we used and, the comma would be there, Riley, Jeffers and Stearns. And the last case where we should not use the comma is whenever it is possible without creating ambiguity. Remember what I told you the previous time? We only use punctuation marks to make our sentences more clear. We do not use them for the sake of using them. If you form your thoughts and your ideas clearly, you will need the minimum of punctuation marks. Let's look at some examples here, and the examples of the sentences where the comma is misused. My brother and my sister both love chocolate ice cream. This sentence is incorrect. We should not put the comma before and. My brother and my sister both love chocolate and ice cream. That's it. Another example. Alice stood up and opened the window. Why would we need the comma here? It should not be there. We should just say Alice stood up and opened the window. James was very hungry because he hadn't eaten his lunch. Why do we need the comma before because? For no reason. We don't need it. James was very hungry because he hadn't eaten his lunch. That's it. The next punctuation mark we are to talk about is the colon. First of all, we use the colon to introduce a question or a quotation. For instance, the following question came to my mind: can a human being be happy all the time? Or, the teacher asked a difficult question: what is the meaning of life? Jane said, it is time to go. Mary inquired, when do we use the colon? We also need the colon after a complete sentence when it introduces or explains what follows. If what follows is a full sentence, the first word should be capitalized. Let's see. There is one thing I can't live without: good coffee. He had only one fear: failure. She finally realized the truth. Nothing is more important than family. The teacher had one key piece of advice: always proofread your work before submitting it. The colon is also used after a sentence that introduces an extract. Let's see. The instructions were the following, and here goes the extract. To begin the process, ensure all safety measures are in place. Then press the red button firmly and wait for the green light to indicate that the machine is running. The colon is also used to introduce a list of items that is embedded in a sentence. For instance, she packed the essentials: a water bottle, some protein bars, a first aid kit, and a flashlight. Another example. The recipe requires several key ingredients: flour, sugar, eggs, and vanilla extract. And one more, the museum showcased artifacts from different ancient civilizations: Egyptian statues, Greek pottery, Roman coins, and Chinese scrolls. Of course, we also use the colon to introduce a bulleted or enumerated list. These lists are not embedded into sentences, and this is how they ideally should look. Before heading out on a hiking trip, make sure you have the essentials: colon, and then we start our list: a water bottle, some protein bars, a first aid kit, a flashlight. Pay attention that the items on this list are separated with the help of the semicolon. Finally, we use the colon to separate titles and subtitles. We say Sapiens, a brief history of humankind, The Power of Habit, why we do what we do in life. The colon is also used to write clock time. We say 1:30 p.m. 1 is separated from 30 with the help of the colon. 7:50 a.m. or 13:30. This is what we call military time, yeah? And we use the colon in all of these representations of clock time. The colon is also used in proportions. For example, the success rate was 5:1 in favor of the new product. The solution ratio is 1:4, water to concentrate. The team scored 4-3 in the final match. Another punctuation mark that we use to divide our sentences into parts is the semicolon. The main application of the semicolon is when we already have commas in a sentence and we want to divide our sentence into parts, but these parts will have commas in them. I visited Paris, France last summer. My friend, however, went to Italy. You see that in both of these clauses there are already elements that are set off by commas. France in the first one and however in the second. So it's only logical to separate these two clauses with the help of the semicolon. Another example, we have a meeting at 10 a.m., which is early for me, but I can manage to be on time. My friend loves hiking in the mountains, especially in the fall. I, on the other hand, prefer the beach. There's usually no need to use the semicolon in short sentences, so we only will see this punctuation mark in long, more complex sentences. For instance, if we simplify the last sentence, we will use only the comma, and that's it. For instance, my friend loves hiking, comma, and I love the beach. Another case when we use the semicolon is to separate closely related statements that cannot stand as separate sentences, as well as statements that express contrast. For instance, the weather was beautiful yesterday. Today it's raining. So these clauses are very closely related to each other. There will be no point in separating them, creating two independent sentences. We need to put them in one sentence, and to somehow divide them, we use the semicolon. A different example, the city was noisy and bustling, the countryside peaceful and quiet. These are two contrasting ideas, and as we want them in one sentence, we separate them with a semicolon. Pay attention to the second clause, the countryside peaceful and quiet. Today we have already spoken about the comma, and I told you that the comma is used when a word or several words are omitted. This is one of such cases. The countryside was peaceful and quiet. As we drop this was, we put the comma in its place. And one more example, his speech was inspiring and full of hope. Hers was filled with doubt. Again, these are two contrasting ideas in one sentence, and the semicolon is used to divide them. Now, the semicolon is also used between independent clauses that are linked in meaning by a transitional word. Such transitional words are, however, meanwhile, next, similarly, therefore, for example, in addition, in conclusion, and so on. She studied all night for the exam. Therefore, she felt confident the next morning. I wanted to go for a walk. However, it started raining. Jane was preparing dinner in the kitchen. Meanwhile, her husband was vacuuming the floors. Please note that the semicolon is not used in those cases where the comma will suffice. Let's see what I mean. He was tired, but he finished the project. The semicolon is a little bit of an overkill here. The comma will suffice. We can just say, he was tired, but he finished the project. Another example, we can go for a walk or we can stay at home. Again, there is no need for the semicolon. We should just say, we can go for a walk, comma, or we can stay at home. She studied all night, so she was prepared for the exam. The semicolon should not be used before so we should say, she studied all night, so she prepared for the exam. I hope that's clear. Concluding today's lesson, I'd like to say that please mind your punctuation marks and use them only in those cases where they are absolutely necessary, where they really help avoid ambiguity, make your ideas clear, your sentence more structured, and so on. This is all for today. I hope this video was useful and informative. We'll continue talking about punctuation marks in our next video, so subscribe to this channel in order not to miss it, and see you in a week.